It is Friday, May 11th. Let's talk PlayStation. We're going to kick off this news week with a news story that we actually haven't covered, and it's been ongoing for the past month and a half or so, and now we actually have a resolution, so I guess now's the time to talk about it. But anyway, about a month ago, the FTC, the Federal Trade Communications, contacted Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, many other tech companies, and even auto manufacturer about their warranties and how their warranties are actually violating the FTC Act. And so specifically, Sony and even Nintendo just recently updated their policies on their warranty coverage for their consoles, and so now we have different coverage that it actually goes into effect immediately. So even though if you bought a console recently that has obviously the current warranty printed on the manual and such like that, as long as the console still actually has a remaining warranty, you actually have the updated policies. So the updated policies in regards to what's going on, so basically the label, for example, that famous label that's on a lot of PlayStation hardware that says, if you remove this little label, the warranty's void. That's typically covering a little screw that allows access into opening the system up. That's not going to void the warranty anymore. So that's actually some pretty somewhat pro-consumer news. And then the other side of it is that beforehand it said that third-party services, third-party peripherals, things like that, if they are used with the system, that would void the warranty. Now that they're allowed to be used, it's just that if they damage the system, then that will void the warranty. But beforehand, it actually explicitly says that if it is not licensed by Sony Interactive Entertainment and you use it with the hardware, that will void the warranty. Now you can do that, just don't have those devices or services actually harm the hardware, that will void the warranty. So there you go, into effect immediately if you have a PS4. So this next news story is actually Microsoft sales numbers, and what's interesting about us talking about this is because if you don't know or if you haven't realized, but Microsoft has not given out official Xbox One sales in a very long time. I think the last time they gave an actual sales figure was around 2014 or something like that. The reason why they don't release sales numbers is because they're being outsold quite handedly by PlayStation, and they don't like releasing official numbers, and that's why Sony does release official numbers, because they know they're doing quite well and they don't mind releasing those numbers. This is actually something that Sony also did in last generation with the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. There were certain times where Sony just wouldn't reveal how many PS3s were being sold at the time when they were being outsold. But anyway, EA was the one that sort of dropped the ball on this one. So recently during an earnings call, CEO Andrew Wilson basically dropped that at the end of last year, so at the end of 2017, total console sales between PS4 and Xbox One were around 103 million. That's not explicitly saying what Microsoft's at, but anybody that can do some math and understand that Sony around that same time frame announced that they had sold 73 million PlayStation 4s, you can work that out to being Microsoft selling 30 million Xbox Ones, which is actually lower than what a lot of people were projecting, what a lot of current estimates are out there. Currently, at that time at least, a lot of people were thinking, okay, Microsoft's probably somewhere around the nature of 33, 35 million Xbox Ones, and that's at the end of 2017. So you think coming up on to where we are now in May, they've got to be around 38, maybe almost coming up on 40 million units. That's, I guess, optimistically speaking, but to know that they were, just barely at 30 million at the end of 2017, it's not great. And that puts Sony at a 70% market share if we're talking about strictly between Xbox One and PlayStation 4. That's crazy. And that's really the only news story that that's it. That's the news. I thought Microsoft was well over 35 million at this point. And they're probably closer to that now, given that number is from December 31st of last year, January 1st, whatever you want, the exact date. That's not good, man. I would want that, and that's the thing I want Microsoft to do, but I don't want them to do this poorly. Because you don't want that. You don't want Sony to be doing that well over Microsoft, because we all know what happens when one manufacturer gets a little too comfortable with where they are. Then they can start getting away with certain anti-consumer policies that aren't necessarily all that great. And you can see from so long of how Microsoft's been getting their ass kicked that they've been trying to do so many great things for the consumer. We've touched on that once or twice. But anyway, moving on to our next news story. I found this one to be quite interesting, and it bodes well for possibly more releases like this in the future, but it was recently discovered this past week that Parappa the Rapper, the PS4 port that was released not too long ago, actually a PSP emulator from the original PSP port. Who would have knew? It's not entirely surprising given the fact that Sony probably wants to use old resources and reuse things that they have, in-house to keep costs down for doing things like these, and it's certainly cool. I mean, basically the only thing on that port is like a PS4 texture pack, more or less, when it comes to the actual code that's being applied to that recent release for the game. And you got to figure this is probably also the case for Loco Roco. And it's like it bodes well for possibly what they can do in the future, right? If this means that they can do more things like this for possibly bringing over games that were originally like on the PSP. I'm sure this is what they use a lot. This is the kind of approach they do for a lot of older games, right? They try to see if they can, emulate it and just, again, up-res it, apply very simple code to it. I mean, just go about it in the easiest way possible. Of course, a lot of times with re-releases and ports, it sometimes takes so long because Sony goes through a recertification process, a Q&A process. It takes a long time. That's why we often don't see that many PS2 classics or re-releases, or at the very least you think, oh my god, look at all these games that Sony could be doing and they're not doing them. It's like, why aren't they doing them? Because of all that nonsense, right? But if they can do as little as possible and still make it look as nice and pretty as possible, give it some trophies, I'm all for it. Now, Game Informer's June issue is actually covering Days Gone, which is great because whenever they do a cover game, they do a lot of coverage. We learn a lot of details. They talk directly with they spend a lot of time with the developer, with the game's director. So this is great. We learned a lot more about Days Gone that we didn't previously know about before. And what I like about what they do with the cover game is usually they do like a quick fire of like 150 questions. And we learn just a lot of small details and facts that we wouldn't otherwise have known up until this point. So just fire off a few facts for you for Days Gone. So it's a lot of cool stuff that we didn't know. So the word zombie never appears in the game. They're always going to be referred to as freakers. He says that we will care about the game's director, mind you. He says we will care about Deacon. He's a good and a funny guy. He's the only playable character in the game. There's no outfit customization. Deacon's bike can and will break down. His tires cannot pop, but they can't deflate or pop a wheelie. You get points for doing stunts. You can lose the motorcycle and you'll have to go find it. You can upgrade the motorcycle's paint job, exhaust, speed boost, and handling. There will be motorcycle chases. There is no sidecar for the motorcycle. You can fast travel in the game. The game will be 30 frames per second, even on PS4 Pro with enhancements, but it does include checkerboard 4K rendering. There are lots of collectibles. There will be kind of a photo mode. Who really knows what that means? No multiplayer. Stats are tracked, like how many freakers you've killed, so that's pretty cool. Those are always fun with those zombie games. You can keep playing the game after you finish. There's lots of jokes apparently in the game, or joke trophies in the game. It's going to be a tough game. You cannot do a zero-kill playthrough. The currency in the game is called credits. There's a massive metropolitan area in the game. You can build encampments as bases throughout the game. You can communicate with home base while on your bike. There are no rumors of a place free from the infection. Minnesota's underwater. This is a global epidemic. You will learn the origin of the infection. The world is not salvageable. The game is broken up into chapters. You can kind of choose allegiances in the game. The final boss is human. There are no kids in the game. The game will not have a big showing at E3. I always love when Game Informer does that because we just learn so much about the game very quickly with like just little detail. Like we almost learned too much about the game from like all those quickfire answers, but cool there for sure. The director also talked a little bit about how the game, in a sense, is fighting a bit of an uphill battle with its genre, which is that it's a zombie game and it's a bit of a double whammy because it's a zombie game and it's an open world game, which a lot of people think, okay, those two put together, it's like that's kind of, people are very fatigued on the genre, and that's like a situation where Days Gone is coming in at such a moment where many people might not want to approach it. And basically the only thing he said in regards to that is that, well, you just have to play it. He feels that the how Days Gone and how it's played, it's very fun. It's a bit different because it's played in such a different manner. And I can see actually where he's kind of referring to. I mean, one section that he kind of talked about is how noise plays an integral role in the game, and you can actually customize your bike in a way where it doesn't make as much sound, so it doesn't attract as many freakers. So I like that sort of play-by-play because it is an open landscape and you will be doing long traveling on the bike, so I can see how that could play a pretty vital role. And it already sounds a little bit different compared to other open-world games that have zombie-type creatures in the game. So I'm all for it, and the game still looks it looks very polished. And there's not that many games out there that have so many on-screen enemies chasing you in such a frantic manner. So I'm still pretty optimistic about the game itself. Now, the other news story is that Sony Bend actually has a new job listing for a senior staff gameplay programmer, and it's for, quote, a new PS4 AAA exclusive. Kind of a red flag, right? Because we already know about Days Gone, so why is there a new AAA PS4 exclusive? Well, because they're probably gearing up to start developing a new AAA PS4 exclusive. Actually, it's not entirely surprising because once they're, if the team knows that they're 6, 8, 9 months out from releasing the game, because Days Gone is still slated for being released in early 2019, and so if they're getting fairly confident that they're going to be hitting their target, which, they probably will be, considering they had just recently announced a delay, so they probably know they need the few extra months, and now that they're being, they're finally releasing more details about the game, they're feeling confident that they can hit their early 2019 release, and we're already halfway through 2018, so yeah, it's absolutely, we could see a small team at Sony Bend possibly forming up to start the early concept and startup of an entirely new project. What's surprising to me, at least, is that, well, it's just so dramatic of what Sony Bend has traditionally been doing, and now all of a sudden, boom, they're releasing this big AAA PS4 exclusive, and they're already gearing up for another one right after, when they've typically been known from Siphon Filter and just doing Uncharted Golden Abyss previously before this, right? So it's just such a dramatic leap, but Days Gone actually looks so polished and it looks so damn good. We're just going to be jumping in right into another one. But another interesting thing about that job listing is that it does specifically say AAA PS4 exclusive, PS4, because that's kind of like the whole thing we've been talking about with this whole roadmap of possibly Sony getting into the next generation of PlayStation 5, which is that once a lot of Sony's worldwide studios finish up their PS4 games take so damn long to make, 2, 3, 4, 5 years at a time sometimes, and we're near the end of, well, not end necessarily, but certainly we're on the latter half of PS4's life cycle. So given the fact that all these PS4 games will come out, and it takes so long to make games, a lot of Sony's developers will probably start working on PlayStation 5 games. Although at the same time, one or two developers do have to, I don't want to say left behind certainly, but a few developers do have to still, punch out possibly another PS4 game before they're finally ceased off. And definitely for sure it would be a situation where, let's say for Sony Bend, for example, if they are doing another PS4 exclusive right after Days Gone, this game will probably come out well after we know about PlayStation 5, right? PS5 will probably already be announced, and this game will, come out, let's say, maybe a few months before PlayStation 5 is actually going to be released or something like that, maybe a few months before there's an E3 detailing all the major details about PS5, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be some crossover there with one or two PS4, final PS4 exclusives coming out. So this may be a situation where Sony Bend is going to be at the helm of releasing one of the last major PS4 exclusives. Anyway, those are just some of the news stories that I want to talk about with you guys this week. So sorry I didn't have a video on Monday or Wednesday. Just super swamped right now. Gearing up to purchase a new car, which has been kind of a hectic little week I've been going through, just getting a lot of paperwork ready, moving money around because I don't have a car, and then I've been getting chauffeured to work, and I feel like a prisoner because I have no vehicle, so that's kind of been a pain in the ass. But I've been going through more God of War. I know, people are already, well overdone with God of War and getting platinums, but I'm trudging along through it slowly, and it's actually been a fantastic game, but I gotta hurry with that game soon because Detroit Become Human coming out May 25th, and that's the game I'm super excited for, so I want to at least finish it before that comes out. But yeah, this week for sure, this coming Monday or Wednesday, you will see an upload. It'll just be some random video that you're not expecting, and I think I actually know what I do want to release, and you may end up liking it. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you guys next Friday.